Welcome to Biggest Geekus with just Randy. Um, so I moved around a little bit in the house. Behind me, you can see a portion of my um, miniature collection. I'm going to move this a little bit. So off to the right, there's a little bit of the collection and some books on the bottom. My big head, which you can see there's a mirror back there. Got a variety of figures. Then there's a giant shelf more of figures. Stupid dragon heads. And then over in that corner are two shelves. You can see the giant Tiamat, the giant red dragon from the Ancient of Days. Two more shelves. By the way, they are full of miniatures. So I have been collecting a bunch. Sounds like I got a cat's going to get involved in this, but I didn't do this just to show you my minis. I'm actually going to do a review. The cat Willow's making a lot of noise. I apologize for that. I want to review Index Card RPG. So this is the second edition book. I did play a game this weekend with my buddy Ben. He ran us through what's called a warp shell setting. Open sort of sci-fi, little bit of oh gosh, what is Farscape? Got kind of a living ship. That's kind of how we ended with our living ship. Had a great time. What a good time. But I got a bunch of good buddies. I wanted to kind of overview this game and give it a early review. We used the Master Edition, which is kind of my first complaint. The Master Edition is much better than this. This is not, the second edition is not really well organized, or maybe I'm a little on the stupid side. I got a cat that's giving me trouble, so we have to deal with her. She seems to want to get up here. So what the heck? Let's bring Willow up and let everybody meet the cat. She's our big, mostly Maine Coon, and she will stay on me for a little bit. So, because, she's pretty and she knows it, and she's pushy, not cool like my dog who can stay out of the way. So anyway, oh, there she goes. So I'm bored already. Back to the review. Great book. Going to buy the Master's Edition. In fact, I've already ordered it on Amazon. So we played. It's kind of a generic system. I think it has a lot of good qualities. I would say take a look at the character sheet. Here's my character, Boo Bamboo. He was a kit. Think of, I modeled him a lot after Rocket Raccoon. So this game gives you 6 points to start out with, and you get to distribute those 6 points to the standard scores, strength, dex, con, and so on through charisma. Our DM added a luck stat. Worked out really well, actually. And so if you have a 1 index, you get a +1. He did allow us to take up to a -3. So you go down into a negative and you add 1 to another score. I feel like that made some of the characters a little too good. We had a beginning character with an AC or defense value of 20. That seemed really hard for the creatures to hurt or hit, maybe too hard. But again, just the beginning was a heck of a good time. We woke up not knowing each other in an arena in an old quasi-medieval world, but there was these high-tech handcuffs holding us there, and this self-styled emperor of this planet he had taken over. He's wanted us to be his last bit of minions to do his work, and he said, fight amongst us, and the winner, we were supposed to fight amongst us, the 3 PCs, and the winner would get to be his henchman. And of course we said, here's our middle finger, and we're not doing that. And lots of fun and chaos ensued. We had a fantastic time. Ben did a wonderful job. The stats are very reminiscent of D20, but just using modifiers. You have a life form, which I was called a kit. I'm kind of a gopher guy, about 3 feet tall. My type or class was a pilot. The way you get abilities, they kind of categorize them kind of in like you get sort of a type ability, and you get a class ability, and then you get a loot, which is kind of your gear, 3 or 4 of those. Those enhance the other abilities. Damage is generally based on the type of thing that you're doing. It's a pretty free form game. It's got some nice constructs. You can defeat foes through actual combat, through perhaps like my guy was trying to mess around with the computer at one time, and we freed this, if you guys know Farscape, this Moya type ship, which ended up being ours. But I had like skill checks I did every round to whittle down this force field. Um, Generally, the damage is based on D6. Guns do a D8, energy and magic do a D10. And then if you roll a 20, you get what's called ultimate damage. You get to add a D12 to your damage or replace the D12. The D12 replaces your base damage, one or the other. What was really awesome is every time you roll a 20, you get a mastery point. And once you get so many of those, so you're always keeping track of your 20s. So down here in my character sheet, you'll see here at the bottom, I mean, I know it seems to be in reverse, but this is the mastery points that I'm building. And once you get so many, you get a mastery advancement. The advancement system, you can increase a stat. You can get cool abilities. I was able to add an ally when I got an advancement in this scenario, and we kind of used it to add this wolf creature to be my companion. We discussed afterwards, I don't know how great the advancement system is in this game. It feels like to me great for a one shot or a short campaign, but it's hard for me to even imagine playing 6 months or a year because the advancement seems so small that eventually you would be kind of tapped out on the cool stuff for your character. I think that overall it's fun gameplay. I like rolling the dice. One of the most innovative things that I saw for this game that I know I've seen it before. I think Professor DM had talked about it, and I realize I am reviewing a game that's been around for quite a while, and oh well. Every scene had a DC, if you will, if you're thinking about D&D language, and so this is an example of such a scene, and my friend Ben had all these cool bells and whistles. So he had a little stand with these cards. So in one scene, we'd have basically everything you're doing has a target of 15. If it's a hard situation, a hard roll is a 17. Easy was a 13. What I gleaned as a player was that if you attempted something 2 times in a row, like attacking again, it became easier. One of our characters was a ghost armor creature. So basically a creature encased that was an ethereal creature encased in a suit of armor. And he had an ability to drop that down by 1. So that was pretty sweet. That actually allowed me to succeed on one thing. My friend Jeff was a gunner. And so he was kind of the shooter guy. He was pretty boss. Those two were ridiculously good. My guy was just kind of mediocre. So I had to push hard my small size, and I just went after things. Hit points are interesting. You get hearts. They're worth 10 hit points. So increments of 10. If you can see here, there is the hearts. I circled that. I have 1 heart at quote unquote first level initial, and you can add them on. You gain hearts, I think, over time. I didn't really read that very closely. I think the Master Edition is by far the best one to own. The organization on the second edition was not my favorite. The Master Edition also adds more worlds. In the second edition, I believe all you get is Alfheim, which is a fantasy world, and Warp Shell, which is a futuristic world. I think the game is kind of like a very D20 version, I would say, of Savage Worlds, but really it's wide open. They don't try to give you too much direction. I think you make the game what you want it to be. We had a question about defensive roles versus an armor class. So sometimes your defense, like me, I had a +2 to defense. So my armor class was 12, but there are some places in the game where they say maybe I have to roll a defensive roll, like if a dragon breathed on you, I would roll +2 as a defensive maneuver. I'm not sure how that worked. Again, we played once, but I did say I had such a good time. I really like the game. I've already bought the Master Edition. It'll be coming, unfortunately, not until April. I guess it's hard to get a hold of that. It's apparently sold out at Mephidius Games, which I understand why. It's a super fun game. I think I would one shot this thing like crazy. I want to hold off on evaluating the campaign ability. I have an idea. In fact, here at the end, I'm going to give a kind of a score. I've decided on a big geek scale. So I'm going to have a score of some sort. I do think that the game is perfect for conventions. It's perfect for pick up and play. Um, it's not much for character building, especially from a guy who comes from Pathfinder's last 3.5, history, a massive history. And not that I care as a player, as Randy, the player, I loved it. It's perfect for Randy. It's the PC creation is very simple. You can get a character made. I made my character in 20 minutes, and then I had refined it a little bit when we got to the table. I think for a lot of the players in my group, there's not much meat in their minds on the bone when it comes to the character creation part, but I think it's good. The speed is great of play, turns are quick. I think it allows ample role play and freedom of the DM. I think experienced DMs would use this with great effect. I can't go into great details on all the rules, but I can tell you was D20 beat a target number for the most part. And as your hearts get whittled down, you take 2 damage, 3 damage, 5 damage. Once you get down to 0 or lower, you start dying. You roll a D4 rounds, and that's how long the group has to get to you to do something, or you're dead. And guys know I love that. I wish it was mysterious. I'm just such a fan of hiding that role and letting the players sweat it out. But I understand folks that think it may add more if you know, and I can see that. I thought sometimes you're working really hard to make your gear and loot that you have. Loot is just a generic word for starting equipment, and then later on you can get true loot. It's fairly abstract in its language. Max 10 items. Don't talk much about weight. I really thought for the starting gear, when I first looked at the loot page for Warp Shell, I was like, this is kind of weak. Then I turned it, there were 2 pages, and it was really fun. You get to pick 4 things, and it turned out there's about 12, 14 things I wanted, so I had to really whittle it down. So I like that. But let's get on to the evaluation part, the numerical part. I love that. Ratings are going to go from a 1 to a 5. 1 is going to be it's not even a geek. 2, it's a little baby geek. 3 is it's a geek. 4 is a quality geek. And 5 rating is a big geek. For PC creation, experience points, I would give it a 4. The DM just decides when you get boosts, gets advancements. I like that. The learning curve to play the game is a 5. It's big. It's awesome. It's super easy to figure out. No tricks, nothing up your sleeves. Mechanical meat, even though Randy loved it, probably for most gamers, it's probably a 2. I mean, there's very little to think about. The 2 guys that I played with, Jeff and Aaron, boy, they maxed their character out right off the bat, so wasn't much to think about. The role play ability, I mean, it's heavy. I mean, if you're doing it right, there's so much creative space. You can RP and do what you want, and it doesn't have to affect things. It's got a lot of space for narrative control. You get a hero coin. I left that off, and you can use one of those for a reroll or a little narrative power. One shot potential. A role playing meets a 3. I think one shot potential is a 5. Perfect for a one shot. Campaign ability, I'm going to give it a 3 with a bullet. As I play more and more, we'll find out. Replayability is a 5. I mean, this game's generic enough. You can set the worlds up to be whatever you want. I think it would take some effort, but in the Master Edition, there are 5 worlds. Everything from the fantasy to the sci-fi. I think there's a survival type setting and 2 others that I don't recall. Average that out numerically, it's about a 3.85. So it's a good, solid geek, almost a quality geek score. So 3.85 out of 5 is a really good score. I'm going to try to do more of these. And thanks for listening. And I'm sorry if it was super long. You guys have a good day, and can't be big like us. You know what you do. Be geeks like us. This game's doing a good job. Later, guys.